So I wanted to begin by sharing my screen and hoping that everything goes great from there. So let's see how this goes. So the title of our talk is Haiti Photography and Black Representation. And one of the things that I want to for everyone to just take a chance and experience, and maybe you've done this before, is to just take your phone for in this moment, like collectively, if we could all do this, and then just type in Haiti into your Google search. So, like, if you're on your phone, I'm sorry, if you're on your computer, just use whichever one you have access to and just type in Haiti. And in the chat, why don't you just type in what's coming up for you? What are the first things that come up for you as you're searching? Because I'm wondering if it's all the same. And then if you use another search engine outside of Google, feel free to search there. But what comes up for you? Just type it into the chat. Okay, yes. Lucia says, people also ask, is Haiti dangerous? Is Haiti the poorest country in the world? Is Haiti an African country? What country does Haiti belong to? You see a map of Haiti and its flag. It's a country in the Caribbean. You see Wikipedia links. Is Haiti dangerous to tourists? Trip planner article, is democracy in Haiti eroding? The president's new intelligence agency has many uneasy. That's from the Miami Herald. Haiti Revolution, Haitian food. Former home of Ken Henry. It gives me the country, its description, and Haiti news. Right. And so I want us to think about, you're typing into a search engine about a country. But for me, the first things that come up, as for some of you, is Haiti dangerous to tourists? Is it the poorest country in the hemisphere? What is Haiti famous for? And why is Haiti so unstable? And so in sharing this link with family and friends and letting folks know, I just want you to know that as a Haitian person, there's a weight that's on my shoulder. There's a weight that's on my shoulder in trying to make sure that I tell this story the best, right? In the best possible fashion, recognizing that there are so many stories that are not heard, right? There are so many places in which we are unable to really get the full scope of what exactly is happening in Haiti, because so many others are telling the story of Haiti. So this presentation is grounded in honor and respect, which is an expression that we say in Haiti, honor and respect. And I want to start with this image here. I want to start with this image here. And I want to just, you can put it in the chat. Tell me what you see. Well, there's a lot of information on this. I put a lot of information there, but I'd love to hear what you see. Grandparents, flowered dress, mom and dad, funky tie, a well-dressed couple. I see grandma looking directly into the camera. History, a couple. The woman is embraced by the apparent husband while being dressed as well as possible. A beautiful couple, a great portrait. I like his hand on her arm. So this is something that I want you to just consider for a moment, that in my family album are these types of images of IET. The IET that I know is one in which is grounded in community, in family, in relationships. The IET that I came to know is one that the media just literally shifted everything that I thought that I knew about that I thought that I knew about Haiti. And so these are my maternal grandparents. This is my mother's parents. Uh, my family hails from a part of Haiti known as Jacmel, and they moved into the city. And my grandfather, sorry, was in the military, and so they lived their life under multiple presidents. But Duvalier was a part of it later on under Duvalier. And so just looking at this image in the sense of looking at people who are clean, people who are have the agency and an understanding about the significance of imagery. I want to share with you an excerpt from Diaspora Diaries. And Diaspora Diaries is a book that I edited when I worked as director of education at Mokata. And so I just want to read just a little passage from a piece that I wrote. And it says, "The Caribbean daughter in me cannot move forward with this work of photography and writing without paying homage to my ancestors, all those whose names are known and forgotten, but their spirit are known and forgotten, but their spirit is etched in the iris filigree of my soul. Haitian magicians, born into a dehumanizing system of chattel slavery, in which they receive no benefit other than the tremendous practice of visualizing freedom, actualizing revolution, and elevating spiritual symmetry. Yes, it is through this tremendous gift of their lives and their dreams that I have the largesse to walk this path. M'abdi tout en set moi, merci pour tout ça nous fait pour moi." Thank you, thank you, thank you. And so I also want to share a bit from Bell Hooks. And Bell Hooks writes about the photographs that were in her family. She writes this: "Those pictorial genealogies that Sarah Oldman, my mother's mother, constructed on her walls were essential to our sense of self and identity as a family. They provided a necessary narrative, a way for us to enter history without words. When words entered, they did so in order to make the images live. Many older Black folks who cherished pictures were not literate. The images were crucial documentation there to sustain and affirm oral memory. The walls of pictures were indeed maps guiding us through diverse journeys, seeking to recover strands of oppositional worldviews that were a part of Black folks' historical relationship to the visual. The process of image making, many Black folks are once again looking to photography to make that connection." And that's from Bell Hooks, an excerpt of an essay, "In Our Glory, Photography and Black Life." And so this bit here, I'm going to read a little bit further from Diaspora Diaries. "The impetus for my research began long ago with the acquisition of a treasured family photograph. Throughout the years of my visiting my extended Haitian family along the East Coast of the United States, I saw multiple copies of this image on display on my Tante Jacqueline's dresser or tucked away in Uncle Danny's yellowed, sticky family album purchased from a time when plastic was exciting and new. I remain clueless to the specifics of when and how. However, sometime during the early 90s, I obtained, stole, borrowed, happened upon, or was possibly given an original photograph of my maternal grandparents. The back of the photograph says 19 February 1968. This family memento designed in a corrugated postcard fashion has Abraham Photo, the photography studio, Port-au-Prince, Haiti, printed along the center. In the photograph, my grand-père is looking off to the right. His left arm is wrapped around my grand-mère, respectfully holding her. Her direct gaze is slightly out of focus. With power of their story. While serenading each willing listener Our population, since most ordinary Americans leave few, if any, written records, diaries, autobiographical memoirs, or letters, historians and others must start taking seriously such seemingly inconsequential materials as family photographs. Travels of the Black Atlantic created inroads to many exchanges with mementos, keepsakes of family fulcrum, like my family photograph. With the gradual accessibility of this media to most, the wealthy, poor, and those somewhere in between were able to have their images immortalized. The hoax elaborates further. Cameras gave to Black folks, irrespective of our class, a means by which we could participate fully in the production of images. Hence, it is essential that any theoretical discussion of the relationship of Black life to the visual, to art making, make photography central. Access and mass appeal have historically made photography a powerful location for the construction of an oppositional Black aesthetic. In the world before racial integration, there was a constant struggle on the part of Black folks to create a counter-hegemonic world of images that would stand as visual resistance, challenging racist images. So I am so sorry to hear that's best. My sincere apologies for that. I wanted to share just that little bit of writing in reference to this image.
Most of it came through, Regine. We're hearing you clearly most of the
Okay.
time. It's a little bit choppy at moments, just so you're aware.
A little bit choppy.
It's sounding
Okay.
good right now.
So I don't know why. Okay, I don't know why, but you know, this is how it goes.
This is how it goes.
And so I wanted to move forward with the discussion. How's it now? It's okay. Okay. So I wanted to move forward with just a moment to glance at a photograph that was taken many moons ago in Haiti. In this photograph, I am with my older sister, and I just want us to consider the very complexity of what it means to grow up bicultural, bilingual, actually trilingual, but to grow up within a society that already has issues with Blackness, growing up in the United States, and then compounded with that of being from the Caribbean and being from Haiti, a country that, though Google did not exist when I was growing up, much of what we find in our Google search is very much a part of what many people think of Haiti. And some of it is true, and a lot of it is not. And so that's a big part of it. So just a little about me, artists, and these are all my different hairstyles. So depending on when you met me, this is what I look like. But that just gonna move that along. And so these are some images that I also wanted to share because these are images of postcards. These are images of IET at different times of our envisioning of her. We dared to be free. Let us dare to be ourselves and for ourselves. And those are the words of Dessalines. And so in considering IET, photography, and Black representation, what is most important is to recognize the place in which there needs to be agency. There needs to be a space in which we can tell our own stories. And so I want to fast forward to Haiti and the earthquake in 2010. For those of you who have a memory of it, would you mind typing into the chat? Would you mind typing into the chat what you remember about that time? What do you remember about the earthquake? So we have Wyclef Jean. Yes, right? Wyclef was at the forefront. We have learning that I had some dead family members and many people lost their homes. That's from Prince Aziz. Lucia says, I remember images of the earthquake and it reminded me of images of the 1989 San Francisco earthquake. Kantara says, hearing my mother wail and my neighbors above me scream when they heard the news. I remember you going there. This is Aziz. This is my nephew. Hey, Aziz. Going there to photograph and seeing your book here and there after. Ngozi says, I remember images of devastation, talks of lives lost, families separated, and a rising body count. It was all over the news for a while. Broken concrete buildings, fallen trees, seeing some relief effort. And then after a week, nothing, like people stopped caring after a bit. That was Ariana. Rose says, huge amounts of death, fundraisers. And then Ngozi says, I remember everyone scrambling to find out where to donate. And so when we think about the images of Haiti during that time period, it was not easy. You know, it really, really was not easy to have a space in which you could not get in contact with our family. So right now, here we are, we're on Zoom and the connection's not good. I'm going in and out, but you're still able to hear me. You're able to see me. Imagine the space of devastation where you cannot reach anyone. You do not know what has happened. And all that we're seeing is, as someone noted, a rising body count. By the time I finally made it to IET in February 2010, there was a feared estimate of close to 500,000 people. By the time that I arrived, 3 weeks after the earthquake, there was massive graves that had to be created to bury the dead. There, in my own family, my cousins and my uncle lost their wife, lost their mother. She had gone to the Sacre-Cœur Church that Tuesday evening for prayer service, and she was never seen again. She was never seen again, and my cousins lived together for 2 weeks. So when I arrived there, afraid the loss that somebody had experienced, afraid myself because I did not want to see their bodies, and also clear that I had something to offer. Clear that the things that I was bringing, the money, the supplies, that was part of it, but also a bigger part of it was the tool that I had in my hand. The tool that I had in my hand, the camera, and people would shift the way that IT was seen. So I want to share with you a piece that I wrote. Geography. Our hybrid languages, customs, and traditions migrate with us, but both conforming and resisting transcultural influences. At this time, I would like to ask Ngozi if you can share the screen. And while I'm reading this, we are able to look at the images. And these are the images taken in Haiti. So if you would not mind sharing your screen, that would be great. All right, so these images were taken directly on the road, to be quite honest with you. It was quite intense. It was not, how can I say, it was It was, yeah, it was quite intense. So Ngozi, at your will, you can flip through the images. So I'm going to continue reading. I am her storyteller, offering insight into the lives of Haiti's extraordinary yet often marginalized and misrepresented people. I look into the Black space, into the Black face that is often overlooked. People of color are analogous to the Black space in the negative of a photograph. We're often the backgrounds that allow the foreground to be seen. I share the remarkable stories of my people to dismantle this paradigm. The multiple tragedies of January 12, 2010 in Haiti connected the Haitian diaspora into one large family in a way that I had never seen or felt in my lifetime. Accordingly, when we watch the news coverage of members of our extended Haitian community being rescued after 2 weeks or a month under the rubble, we cheered and gave thanks as if it was our very own kin. Our tears and prayers were unified with those of the world as we continue to anxiously await more good news from a country that has already endured so much hardship since its independence from French rule in 1804. The aftermath of Haiti's horrific earthquake also brought an avalanche of stereotypical images that were dispersed throughout the global media, depicting Haitians as nameless, lost bodies, and disconnected from community. For example, on January 19th, 2010, in the New York Times, under the headline Silence and Submission, a photograph shows an unidentified woman prostrate on the slab of concrete with her hands outstretched for help. This image is typical of the way Haitian people and their lives are represented throughout media history. However, in the hands of Haitian people, the camera can provide a broader view of our own experiences and histories, often in contrast to accepted media depictions. As a member of the Haitian diaspora, I went to Haiti 3 weeks after the calamitous events of January 12th to offer assistance, resources, and to photograph a necessary counter perspective. From my trip began a series entitled Haiti Reaching Higher Ground, which includes images the dignity of Haitian people, my people, resilient in our faith and survival. The imagined and the real are tightly woven into the fabric of photography. Historically, the images of Haiti throughout the world rarely show what was real in the lives of Haitian people. They continue to perpetuate what others imagined. Through photography, research, documentation, a series of interviews conducted in my ongoing visual project, new truer images are shared and old tales are birthed anew. The need remains for our own gaze to be seen, one that creates honest, dynamic, innovative portraits of Haitian people. Thank you, Ngozi. And so from these images, there were exhibitions, there were lots of things that happened. And with the 10-year anniversary coming up, I said, well, how can I honor those that perished? How can I support the remembering? How can I be a part of not allowing this time to go unnoticed, but also recognizing a space in which, for those of us that are enduring this pandemic, this COVID-19 Rona situation, and have lost so many of our loved ones, I do believe that we can look to other nations, to other people who have endured tragedies, and look to them for hope. And so the coloring book was birthed out of that intention. Ngozi, if you can just show some images from the coloring book, that would be great. And I realize I'm doing a mixture of kind of a lecture and show and tell, but after we show the images of the from the coloring book, I am interested in hearing from any of you that may have some questions. I have more in the presentation, but I'd like to just pause for a moment if there are any questions. This is the illustration work of Tiffany Gomez. Tiffany Gomez is my niece, and And so these are photographs that were taken, and then we added Haitian veves. We took some liberties in shifting. We also used Adinkra symbols. So these are Adinkra symbols behind, and we wanted to just create something that was a joyful expression of the survivors, recognizing that often when we think about Haiti, we're thinking about much of what was in that Google search. Is it dangerous? Why is it unstable? But also recognizing that there are human beings that are there, that there are people who are living, right? That are living every day, and that there is joy, and that there is a clear, these are the symbols that are included in the coloring book. And it's clear that it's important for us to shift the gaze and recognizing the power of each of us being able to tell our own story. And so that's a big part of the work that I do. And this actually, I was standing at the Rue du Mirac, intersected with Dessalines, and Dessalines is our founding father. Thank you, Ngozi. And that's the cover. All right. Thank you. Thank you. So I wanted to just take a pause here and hear from any of you if there are any questions before I continue, or just what is on your mind, or questions that you have about my work.
People are welcome to put questions in the chat, and you're also welcome to unmute and turn on the camera. I do want to remind people that we're recording, but it's always wonderful to hear from people directly. So please let us know if you have a question. When did you know it needed to be a coloring book? You've spoken so passionately. These images are so compelling. And you've described yourself as a multimedia artist and a storyteller, and clearly you work visually. You see the photographs themselves are amazing, but the vehicle you've chosen is a coloring book, and that says something. How did you make that choice? When did you know that's when it had to be? You might be on mute still. I'm sorry, we're not hearing you yet.
Okay, can you hear me now? All right, so what happened was that 2019, there was on social media, there were so many new innovative coloring books that were coming out. And one of the things that kept coming up, I work as a race equity coach at NYU, and I work with educators predominantly in the New York City area, but also throughout the country. And I've been doing this work for some time. And a big part of the work that I do is looking at culturally responsive education, culturally responsive and sustaining education. And how can we recognize, the need to integrate other material into our curriculum that represents the diversity of our school population. And so the big thing about coloring books, believe it or not, is that growing up, I was trying to figure out if there ever was a time that I ever had a coloring book that had Black and brown people in it. And I just want us to think about that for a moment. As a child, in the space of our imagination, coloring books are pivotal. And so just thinking about that and recognizing, wow, there's a huge advent of adults that are using coloring books now. So I also was thinking about all of us. And then 2020 came, pandemic, and all of us are stuck at home, right? So we're home. We didn't want to be home. We thought that we would be doing, traveling, doing whatever it was that we were going to do. Weddings got canceled. And so I started thinking about my students. I started thinking about the young people that I work with, the educators. And so the idea, the impetus really started really in 2019 and thinking about the 10-year anniversary, and then recognizing how important it was to just offer it as a tool for us in healing, and in a tool for art therapy also, and to offer us a space to color in hope. One, to remember IET, that was number one, to remember a country that is small and tiny but powerful, a country that has at its core freedom and liberty, but there has been so much other that has, taken Haiti from its destiny. And then recognizing the space in which we need, for those of us that are living, and some of us are suffering during this time, a space to just create. And so it was multi-tiered.
I was muted there. Have you been back since the earthquake? Because and I asked this because you said we need to remember IET, which sounds like the IET you knew after the earthquake. And maybe this is obvious when we look at the pictures, but it sounds like something was there and now it's gone with this incredible loss of life. But also, it, when you ask the question, I think several people said, we remember these just a sea of devastation. Have you been back? What survived? What's the critical core that survived despite all of that? What do you still connect with?
I'm going to switch. And hopefully this is better. Is this better? I'm so sorry about all of the issues happening with the sound. So I have returned to IT. And I was in Haiti in 2015. And in Haiti in 2015, and had a chance to travel to places that I'd never been. One of the things that stood out for me was recognizing that if you look at the people that you are photographing with love, that comes out in the image. When we look at people as other, when we look at people as less than, when we move into a space that we are looking at people through a deficit model, that comes out in our imagery. That comes out in the media. And so for me, going to IT after the earthquake in 2015 was just the beginning. I look forward to returning in 2021. It's been some time, but I need to go. Absolutely.
I hope you'll come back and well, I want to give you an opportunity. I want to give everyone an opportunity to ask questions. We can put them in the chat and give you an opportunity because I think we would all like to see more of the presentation and more of your work. But as you're looking forward to returning now, I'm curious as to what kind of work you want to make there next. What are the next subjects you want to document, the people you want to look at with love through your camera, and the aspects that you want to document and share? Has it changed since that initial project when you go back in 2021?
In 2020, thank you so much for that question. And I think the sound seems better. I just had to turn off my computer. I think my computer's dying, people.
Oh.
Help me, please.
It is.
I need a new computer. Okay.
Perfect right now. Yeah.
You know, my goal is to sell 1 million books. So let's all work on this goal together. If we can get 1 million coloring books sold, I could get a new computer. Okay, I'm gonna go to return to your question. I think for me, one of the things that's always been amazing is because my work is grounded in the work of the Black diaspora, of the African diaspora, and I'm a visual anthropologist. And so when I think about how anthropology actually started, right? And so anthropology was really just a social science that wealthy white men were the ones that were anthropologists. I mean, basically, it was based on resources. Who could go to these foreign places and go and spend an inordinate amount of time? And if they weren't wealthy, they had access to wealth. They could gather from their loved ones resources and to go off. The challenge is that often the way that those people were written about was not necessarily written within the lens of love. You know, when we think about Europe's time period of enlightenment, it was a magical time for Europe, but there's a lot that came out of it from that time period, right? So we have the writing of Kant, Hume, Hegel, and tons of others. But during that time is really where race theory came into a very precise science, right? There were all of these things that were trying to be proven about who was better than the other. And when it came to the Black woman, the Black man, the Black child, we were always considered to be less than, to be savage, to be not even human. And so from that period of enlightenment, we have the transatlantic slave trade. We have all of these things that have happened to Black and brown people. And so every time I have a chance to travel, every time I have a chance to step into another country, it is first to be able to acknowledge that we have tremendous survivors of horrific histories, right? But we have love in our family, love of ourselves that keeps us going. And so that's a big part of what I'm always interested in seeing, is how we are able to continue to love. And that is the light of the world, that we are continuing to love right now, the pandemic, despite all of the horrors that are happening due to this, coronavirus, the fears and the deaths that are happening. There still is a space in which we are able to move forward in love. And that is my work. So when I go to Haiti, when I go to Cuba, when I travel, return to West Africa, it is basically looking at us through the lens of love and looking at all that we're able to do, despite the many challenges.
That's a wonderful, for all of us in this time, that's just a wonderful message to think about moving forward. And I can tell you approach that work with joy and it radiates. It's wonderful. I want to ask a question from Ngozi, which actually sounds incredibly interesting. You went by them a little bit in the screens that you shared, which is we'd love to hear a little bit more about the different symbols that you documented and how you selected which images they would accompany.
Okay.
What's the story? How does that work? Now
Thank
I'm
you
incredibly
so
curious.
much. So Ngozi is our brilliant scholar. I thank you for that question. And so there's a couple of things that I wanted to do with this coloring book. So one, we're taking photographs and taking them and moving them into illustrated images. And then using Adinkra symbols, which are from Ghana, West Africa, and voodoo veves. And the veves are part of the voodoo tradition, right? And so one of the things I just want to tell you all, this is really kind of funny. You may or may not find it funny, but the voodoo symbols are, I'll just kind of show you an example. So we have here the Adinkra symbols up at the top, and then we have the voodoo symbols here. So we have those that are for Dessalines, we have for Legba, we have for Urzuli and for Aizan. And those are different energies. So the veves represent the different spirits. And the spirits are, you could say they're like saints. and they have different vibes. They have different forces that they're known for. So there's an image of a young lady that's standing and she's just looking at me, and she's living in a tent city. One of the things that, as I was preparing for this talk, I was in kind of going through just historical references and looking online and just remembering. I don't know if we all remember that there were, for over 2 to 3 years, people living in tent cities after the earthquake. There are people that may still be to this day, almost 11 years later, that are still homeless. They are still homeless from the earthquake. And so part of the sadness that we feel that I feel is that all of the money that was raised at the Red Cross, and that whether it was Wycliffe or whomever, all of this, did the Haitian people get it? Were the Haitian people able to benefit from those resources? And so the veves that I chose to put behind her, the veve that I chose was the one for Ogun. And Ogun is the deity of justice. And so that veve behind her is one that speaks, that pushes power forward in the sense of recognizing who we are and what our stance is. And the Adinkra symbols were with the meanings of the symbol in the image. So there's an image that we used, the Adinkra symbol, and it just was perfect. So for instance, this one here, you may know this symbol. This is one of the symbols for the Sankofa. It's one of the Sankofa symbols. And it's the symbol that means you have to know from whence you've come to know where you're going. The other image of the Sankofa is of a bird looking back, but moving forward. And so there is this intricate space that we have to recognize that we need to be in balance in knowing our history and also being able to move forward with that knowledge. So thank you for that question, Ngozi.
We have a question from Ariana. Ariana, would you like to unmute and ask it, or shall I read?
I can ask it if you want.
Please.
So I'm asking, as someone aspiring to create diverse children's books, how might someone better represent Haitians and Haitian Americans? What's something you didn't see as a child growing up in children's books that you'd like to see? What are visual stereotypes you should avoid of when you draw Black people and Haitians? And then what are some creators and artists we can look at and support to spread the love and to kind of stop some of that misinformation and racist stereotyping that's already shown in the media?
Thank you so much. Well, one of the things I think is to collaborate with Black, BIPOC illustrators, right? So one of the things that happens is recognizing that you may have a powerful story that you want to tell, but you can connect with others that are also doing the work, so that it's not all on you. Recognizing that, and I have to tell you, I have seen wonderful work. My daughter, she had a library of books that I wish that I could have had as a young child. And many of the illustrators were not people of color. The books that drew me in, one of the books that I loved, actually, I don't remember the title of it, was someone who really took the time to draw with love. I keep bringing that forward. And I think if we're moving in that direction, if we recognize that we want to create work for children, right? And we want to be culturally responsive, it's recognizing that we need to be in collaboration with members of those communities, so that it isn't so much for us to decide, it's recognizing what are the needs, what are the stories, and to allow those stories to come through us.
That sounds like good advice for coloring books and for nonprofit arts organizations.
Yes, absolutely.
If anybody else has any questions, we can put them in the chat. We can unmute. Régine, do you want to continue some more of your presentation? I'll do a time check. We're just coming up on 7 o'clock. We're going to be here. We can stay here till 7:30. We can go over if we like. But
okay.
if you would like to continue, we can take some more time, come back to questions. What feels
so
right?
So I was reading before. Oh, there's another question. Okay.
Did I miss Lucia? Or did I miss a hand that was raised?
Yes.
Oh, go ahead, please.
Sorry, I've had a question but I keep wanting to listen to you. And so as I start to type it, I can't concentrate on both. At the end, I'm in Central Time, so I'm just very tired. But I wanted to get back to what you said at the very end about, or not very end, but at some point about how the United States could really look to Haiti to see resilience or to figure out how to get through this type of disaster. Because what I really love about your perspective of Haiti is that while there is, Haiti's no stranger to devastation, Haiti's also no stranger to fighting and love and spirituality and community. And at the beginning of COVID, I started researching the Haitian Revolution, and both the revolution and you bringing in the earthquake, which is another moment of, just you being a Native Haitian and going back and creating something beautiful out of what was happening, and creating some kind of beautiful imagery around, and by beauty, not to negate the violence and the death, but the love. I wonder if you can talk a little bit about Americans in general don't seem to understand how much of our history is shaped by Haitian history, and how much for Black Americans our experience as Black people is shaped by the United States' perception of Haiti, following the Haitian Revolution in particular. And I wonder, I guess I'd love your thoughts on all of this as I'm rambling. So this is why my question was so difficult to bring into the chat.
No problem.
But I wonder, as a Haitian American, how much you wish that people would just shut up and listen to the history of Haiti. Because from yellow fever to the revolution to anti-Blackness today, it resonate so powerfully. And I'll shut up and listen to you. But I just, I would love your thoughts on that.
Well, I think it's a great question. And one of the reasons why I kind of pause is because I can go in, okay? I can go so in and people are like, well, what was the presentation about? We were not sure, but yeah, she went in. So one of the things that's important for us to consider, when we think about IET, when we think about just our simple Google search and what comes up, that is intentional, right? We have to be clear about what the messages are that are before us. There is a wonderful project that is called, I think it's called Media 2070. I think you all should look it up. I also have a resource that I'm going to be sending, a resource list that I'll be sending. It's a Google Doc that I made that you can kind of just go into. And it's basically about media reparations. If you type in media reparations, right, you'll find out about this wonderful group of journalists that have come together. If there is any nation that not only deserves reparations from France, but deserves reparations from the West, it is IET. Part of the challenge that we have in seeing Haiti, other than this small island with all of the strife, is really based upon the stance that Haiti took as a revolutionary nation. When we recognize that when you stand up for yourself, if you're standing up against a world power, then how do you think that world power is going to tell the story about you? I mean, it's very simple. If you understand that IET, small little nation, 1791 came together, a huge Congress, a huge calling and gathering of Africans from all over, from other islands, all coming together and saying, you know what, we're going to put an end to this. And for 14 years, battling the French, the Spanish, the British, right? Until finally Napoleon has to concede. And what many people don't realize is that it is because of the Haitian Revolution that we now have a third of what is now the United States. The Louisiana Purchase is a direct result of the Haitian Revolution. Where we are, the middle part of America right there, if it had not been for the Haitian Revolution, would we have this contiguous United States that we know, right? And then also with that, when we think about what it means to stand for liberty, right? Many of us know the story of the Boston Tea Party. We understand the desire for those who came through Europe and wanted to move west, right? But the indigenous people have another story about that westward expansion. The indigenous people on the island of Haiti, Quisqueya, also have another story, right? They have another perspective about that. And so for those of us who come, are children and sons and daughters of the revolution, we understand what it means to live in a world that is anti-Black. Because in that anti-Blackness is a narrative in which there are lies that are told. And so if you're interested, I would say look up The Horrors of Saint-Domingue. There were so many articles that came out after the Haitian Revolution, and basically people were afraid. Now, anytime that we want to talk about war, war is not pretty. There is not any way that we can think that war is pretty. So anything that happens on one side or the other is atrocious because lives are taken. But it was a brutal fight for independence. And so the same way that we can glorify our independence here in the United States, there are other nations that also are pushing for independence, and Haiti was one of them. And so that push for independence, unfortunately, pushed this small little nation under the heel of Western nations, under the heel of the West. And so a big part of the narrative that comes from that is recognizing that there are many, many who do not understand Haiti because the only thing that they know are the stereotypical stories that are told. Almost everyone that I know that has ever traveled to Haiti, and we can all talk about the challenges that exist there in the sense of the extreme poverty. But one thing is when you spend time with the people, you walk away with a whole different knowing, a whole different knowing. And so that is one of the things when we can travel again, I say when, because it's not if, when we do travel again, we can recognize that there are places that we want to go. And I hope that Haiti is in a state of political stability so that we can travel, and that each of you who are on this call will have a chance to see Haiti for herself. It is not just a place of beaches and, wonderful place for tourists to get away. There actually is a tremendous culture and richness there. So I don't know if I answered your question, but I think I did something.
That was wonderfully inspiring. I appreciate it. I also just plugged in my favorite scholar, which is Haitian, Michel Roth-Triot.
Oh, yes, that's right.
Yes, he's open. I fell in love with Haiti through his writing.
And we also have a scholar on the call, Kantara Souffrant. I don't know if she's still on the call. She's another scholar that you should look up. She's doing tremendous work. Her research on Haiti and our memory and the place in which we keep Haiti alive. And there's quite a bit. Also, Gina Athena Ulysse is another tremendous resource. There's an edition of Meridians, volume 11, where my work is featured as a photo essay, but it's essays and poems, all by Haitian women about the earthquake. And so the piece that I read is actually from that. So you could get that Meridians journal, it's volume 11. And on the cover is one of my photographs. Yes.
Are these included in the list of resources you mentioned earlier?
Yes.
If
exactly.
you send that to Christina and I, and we'll make sure that everybody here gets a copy of that. We'll forward it on.
Okay, I'm going to do that right now and put it in the chat.
And also, let's put it in the chat. That's even better.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, but we'll forward that on in case people aren't tracking everything. Thank you for the questions. This has been I think you've kind of answered the question, why a coloring book? Like we've gone from something that you have made in something that's almost universally accessible that we can project ourselves into. And now we're talking about deeper issues and looking into serious scholarship. And all of it has its roots ultimately in the photographs that you've taken too.
Yeah, I think that for me, when I look at those images, what I see are people that are pushing forward. Haiti is often, the word for Haiti is often resilience, right? And so, but there are also many people that hate that word. They absolutely hate it. They're like, stop calling us resilient. We are human beings and we suffer. We are human beings and we are dying. We are human beings and we are tired of being tired and of being sick and tired. And so the word that I often think about is also one of resistance, because the challenge, if you can imagine, to be such a small, tiny nation, to have fought for your independence, and then the big bully that you beat then says, hey, you know what? You owe me reparations. And that's what France did. France said, you, tiny nation, owe me, big nation, reparations because you took our stock, which were humans. And see, there was an actual space. There's a space in which when you think about it, it's like, wait a minute, what are we talking about? Are we talking about animals or are we talking about human beings? They wanted reparations for the humans, their stock, and they wanted for their land and they wanted for their resources. And so if you just stop to think, wow, a nation that is independent, but France forcibly put reparations and an embargo on the nation. So when we think about why is Haiti in the state that it's in, one of the questions that came up on the Google search was, why is Haiti so unstable? The question that we need to also ask is Haiti unstable because of Haiti or Haitians or because of outside influences? What is the role that the West has in Haiti's continued underdevelopment?
Like you have, well, I mean, we're on the cusp of, certainly here in the United States, we have our own colonialist, I mean, it's France in this case, but we're talking about the West writ large.
Yes.
We are close by, comparatively. We're on the cusp of a new administration. It's better than the last one. We see the light, I hope, at the end of the tunnel of this pandemic that has kept us inside, but has also brought us together here on Zoom. What is the, whether it's through photography, through ongoing conversations like this one, what is the kind of attitude and response that we should, how do we integrate this as Westerners, as people who, what's the stance we should have going forward? Like when we leave this conversation with you today and we're thinking about it tomorrow, and the question you just posed is lingering, I don't know if there's an answer we have to come at to tonight, but I feel like there's a realm of what does it mean for us who are dealing with issues in our own country, in our own neighborhoods, in our own streets right now, even as we're having this broader discussion about how that is interrelated, as the questioner said, with our ongoing history. Our structure, certainly in the United States, of privilege and white supremacy for hundreds of years. These things are interrelated, but I think they seem distant. So how do we address that broader issue while reconciling with the things we see every day in our streets?
Absolutely. I think first is to recognize that there is suffering everywhere. So you don't have to just look at Haiti as a place, as an outside. Right there in San Francisco, right there around in Berkeley, Oakland, there are so many different narratives, so many different stories, and the tremendous work that the San Francisco Camerawork does in bringing together multiple stories, multiple perspectives that we as photographers know because we dive in. I think first is recognizing that we don't even know the story. So there's a place in which we stand and we feel like we know, right? It's to take that hat off, take it off and say, we don't know. And to begin to connect with others who are living those histories. I think that's a place in which we can see, recognizing that there is expertise outside of ourselves, that there are others that have a knowing that we can speak to. The question that was asked earlier, when we think about how to create a children's book that does not reinforce stereotypes, it's important to recognize that who, like, there's a couple of things that we need to consider. Who is at the center of the story? You know, who are the heroes and heroines? Do we continue to have a story that continues to perpetuate the ways in which we think people are living, or that the ways in which we know that they are living because we have the community engaged with our work? And I think that there's a space really for us to continue to grow. Like we're still all students here. Like as long as we have the gift of breath, we can continue to learn. And so if your community, you don't think it's broad enough, if you feel like, you know, I want to step outside of what I know. The Caribbean community, the African community is large and generous and loving and always welcoming, but always recognizing that there's a space in which when we come in as visitors, when we come in as those that are foreign, to respect the traditions that exist, to respect the hierarchy that is there. And the only way that we can know that is to be willing to step outside of our comfort. And that's a big part of the challenge that we have, is that all of us living here in the West, and depending on where we are living, we do have certain comforts. We do have certain ways of seeing the world that, you know, until further notice, what's the reason that we need to change it? Right? And so I think to keep learning, you know, to keep pushing forward. And so I think Ngozi just put in the chat the link to resources.
Yes. Two questions came up, and I see some people unmuted and on camera. So yes, we have that link, and we will send it around. So go ahead and bookmark it, but don't feel like you have to frantically doing it. We'll make sure we get it to you. Prince Aziz, I see your camera's on. You had a question, and then we've got another one. We can just keep on questioning. Do you mind? Do you want to ask it directly on screen?
Yeah, I can ask it. Can you hear me clearly?
Please.
Hey, look at my handsome nephew.
Okay, so you were talking about how the stock, the land, and other things, how there was a price put on each of those and reparations were demanded. But I felt like there was a question of like, how could you place a price on something that didn't belong to you in the first place? The earth was here before us. So how can you say that belongs to me? You know, and then with you and how you tell stories, I was wondering how you move forward with that question in mind and maintain the integrity of those stories as you tell them. And also, yeah, just keeping in mind, like, what gives you the right to make something have a price?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you for that question, Aziz. One of the challenges that we have is how we view each other, right? So when we think about what happened this year, this 2020, what made 2020 so significant, right? It wasn't that Black men being killed by the police was different in 2020. That wasn't different, huh? That wasn't different. What was different is that we all were forced to be at home, many of us working, not working. And when the tragic death of George Floyd happened, that many of us could not escape that which had been happening all along, which in essence was a devaluing of life. So when we think about the stance that the French took, we have to remember that, as I told you earlier, that Europe's period of enlightenment, right? It was their period of enlightenment, but our darkness as Black and brown people, because what they were continuing to propagate was this theory of their supremacy. And so as they traveled around the world and as they told the stories, because many Black and brown cultures are oral traditions, have oral traditions, they're passed down in an oral way. So who's writing the story? Who's telling about these savage people that are here, or this tradition, or this and that? It was not necessarily us until we learned the tongue and then we were able to transcribe. So you have to remember the basis in which the first encounters were not ones with love, was not one in which people thought they were equals. So for the transatlantic slave trade to endure for over 400 years, That is deeply ingrained in the psyche of the people, that they do not value Black and brown people. When we think about what anti-Blackness is, it is deeply entrenched in our culture, deeply. That is the reason why France could place an embargo on this tiny nation and force them to pay. So when we think about why is Haiti unstable, what would happen? Let's think about it. If you, at the age that you are, Aziz, and your parents saying to you, every single thing that we paid for you, you need to give it to us right now. You're not even barely independent. You don't even finish your degree yet. You're in school, but yet you need to pay us right now. And that's not even really a good analogy, because France was not in any way anyone's parent, right? But recognizing that the place of supremacy that they thought that they had, that they can then tell others, that they could not be free. And if you thought that you could be free, well, you have to pay for it. And so that's part of the price that Haiti has been paying for. Now, I saw some questions from Kantara. There was she's a PhD, so she came with the notes. Lord have mercy.
I was gonna ask them for you, and Kantara is also she said she's on bedtime duty, but there's a few questions in the text she put in the chat. The first one that I can ask directly, and I want people to, I want it to be in the video, so I'll read it. How your time in Africa has changed how you visualize Haiti, if at all, and did that change your photographic language and the connections you make between Black peoples? And it sounds like she's referencing a body of work and that you've done in Africa, and then also the work you're doing in Haiti. Yeah, what is the relationship? What changed? It sounds like
to be quite honest, I don't know so much if it was a change or if it became a greater knowing. One of the things that happens for those of us that are born outside of the continent of Africa, is that there's a reverence that we have for the motherland, right? For many folks right now are doing ancestry.com, me and something 23, I don't know. There's all these different, right? Because of the space in which we do not know, right? There's a longing for a knowing outside of however many generations we know. Many of us that descend from the Caribbean, and specifically descend from Haiti, many of us know our lineage because, believe it or not, the voodoo tradition helped us to keep knowledge of where we came from. Within those sacred traditions, there were nations that were able to present themselves and to keep the rhythms, the words, the songs of each nation. So in the gatherings that happened when people came together to pray and to sing and to worship, each nation was represented. And so I think that for me, one thing that I always have heard and always have seen, because I've traveled extensively throughout the Caribbean and Africa, is that Haiti, though it is in the Caribbean, it is a very African nation. It is a very African nation in that, because of Haiti's independence, very early on, very, very early on, there's an energy of people being à l'aise. There's an energy of people being themselves, right? So we have, of course, we have all of those that felt like they had to assimilate to move forward, whether it was French or American or whatever, there's that feeling. But as you go into the countryside, as you go and you speak with people and you see people as they are who they are. And that is the energy that I often feel when I'm traveling on the continent, is that people are who they are. They're not necessarily going to put on a show for you because you're here. No. This is who they are. And so the work in photographing the survivors of the earthquake was in recognizing that we are a people that are resilient, but much more, we are a people that resist. We resist the many horrors that have been inflicted on us. We resist the sadness in all of the deaths that have come, whether it's from political violence, whether natural disasters, and that we resist the space in which anyone tries to take our liberty, that tries to take our freedom and our sense of ourselves. And so that is what I have so much joy in documenting, is people being themselves, unapologetically Black.
I hope as you document more of this, when you go back and all of your work, I hope this is the beginning of a relationship with San Francisco Camerawork. We'd love
Absolutely.
we'd love to see more. This conversation has taken us to so many interesting. I feel like I have homework to do that I'm excited to do, and I think the way you're sharing that with photography, but you're moving it into something else and something more with the coloring book. Um, we can't wait to see it, and I hope you'll share more. The images themselves are beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Coloring book makes it so accessible. Keep us posted. We'd like to see more. I can speak subjectively. The cover of your book that we put on our homepage. Um, God, we just loved looking at it for like the whole time it was up. It was just this one.
Yes.
Oh, I have a question that has been on my mind. I actually meant to ask you when we were backstage. What the name of the coloring book? How do you pronounce it? What does it mean?
Oh, thank you.
That's
Okay, we should have
important.
covered that from the beginning.
Let's make sure we get that in.
Okay, so these are words in Haitian Creole, which is Nou Pap Bliye. It's also similar to French, and it means that we will never forget. Nou is we, pap is never, and bliye is forget. So Nou Pap Bliye is a recognition that we are connected to those who came before us. That in this very moment, we are the past, we are the present, and we are the future. Within our DNA, our ancestors we have their dreams. We have their cellular memory. We are recreating ourselves for the future, right? And so this book is an effort to keep our memories alive, to color in hope. The other thing that I did is that I wrote a poem while I was in Haiti, right after the earthquake, and I had it translated into 6 languages. So when you get the poem, you get a chance to, and if you know how to read Twi, it is written in Twi, which is the language of Ghana. If you know how to read Igbo, which is the language that is one of the languages spoken in Nigeria. If you speak Spanish, if you speak French, and if you speak Haitian Kreyòl, it's all here for you. And I did that intentionally because though that this book is grounded in my ancestral lineage, it is a global project, right? And so recognizing that Haiti's story is a global story. It is one of liberation, it is one of freedom, and it is one of love.
That's the best takeaway of this evening. You know, as we're getting close to 7:30, there's a comment in the chat. I want to give the last question comment story to Aziz.
Okay. Aziz.
Okay. So today I had the unfortunate experience of being fired from a flower shop. But the reason why was because my boss was actively disrespectful, projecting her emotions onto me and being rude. And as a person of color, being a Haitian-American, but also being Black and having both of those histories intertwined within my being, I can't sit there and let someone disrespect me. That's one thing I've never been able to do. So today, for the second time, I stood up to her and she fired me. I'll give you a quick scope of the circumstance. So I had wrapped an arrangement and they had all left me unattended to customers that were there this is my 4th day working there. I don't know how to work with them. All I have is their arrangement. And I knew I should have put it in a box, but kind of as like a lesson to her, I was like, don't leave me here unattended to people that I don't know. And when I don't know what I'm doing, you're supposed to be here to help me and teach me. I didn't put it in a box. And she asked me and she was like, did you put it in a box? I said, no. And she said, I don't know what she did, but somehow she got the customer to come back. She had an attitude while he was there, still displaying it. She threw the vase inside of the box, gave it to him with some foil, and then threw it out. And then I was standing watching her on the wall, watching what she was doing. And then when she was done, she was like, oh, move out of my way. I need to get by. I said, I did it. And I was like, you could have squeezed through. And then she said, you know what? I don't think this is going to work. You're going to have to go. And I let her know that she was a hot mess, that I didn't have time for her to be rude to me, and that if she's going to be rude to people, she can't expect them to be nice to her. And I left, and I threw my apron on the right, and I kept it simple, and I just let her know the truth about herself, but I did not express any profanity, curse her out, nothing like that. I just kept it simple and reciprocated her negative energy and made sure that I was going to get paid for the hours that I worked, and then I left. So I just wanted to express that, like, that resistance to being oppressed. And also, I know I witnessed it with my other coworkers. I was not the only one who experienced this. I have no regrets with what happened today because I'm not going to tolerate disrespect.
So thank you, Aziz, for sharing that. And I think one of the things that's important for us to think about, that there are many places in which we have to take a stand. There are many places in which, you know, it makes me think about Tiffany Haddish, right? Being invited to host the Grammys and they didn't want to pay her, right? So, you know, so from dealing with a place in which you didn't feel honored and respected, and looking at the ways in which many will, you know, may take us out of how we can be connected to each other and to actually respecting, is that we have to know what our limit is. We have to be able to recognize that there's a place in which we will stop. And so I think that for me, I encourage all of us to turn to the arts, to turn to a space in which we are able to create the world that we want to be in. The time that it took to create the coloring book has inspired me to look at other ways to keep the creative juices flowing. What's really important for us during this time where so many people are tense, unhappy, dealing with death, and are angry about so many changes that are happening, whether they're angry about the elections or they're happy or whatever, all of us are in the midst of tremendous change. So during that time, focus on the good that you want to create. Focus on the ways in which we can create the change, right? And so recognizing that justice for you has a particular way in which you see it enacting, and that recognizing for others that they also have a right to speak for justice. So I just want to say thank you for your comment, but also for everybody who's here. Just want to say thank you so much.
Thank you for being here. I hope we get together again. Aziz, I'm sorry that happened to you, but I'm glad you were able to join us today and share your story. And I hope all of you will come back and see us again. You know, the minor bright side of the pandemic is it's helped us connect around things like art, around shared values. We can get together in digital spaces like this, which is really, really special. A number of people asked, like, hey, is this going to be posted? Can we share this? Can we put? We will get it online with you know, the audio was fine most of the time, and your passion and your work and your energy comes through and is inspiring, even with those glitches. So I hope we can do it again sometime. Thank you again so much for being here.
Thank you.
Thanks all of you for being here as well. Join us tomorrow. Oh, wait, no, on Thursday. Tomorrow, I just gave Christina a heart attack. Tomorrow, we have our members critique, which is coming up. And that's with our friend Jamil Helu. And usually we have some members come, they share their work, they get feedback from an inspiring artist. Even if you're not sharing work, that's fun to see. And then please join us on Thursday, the 17th. We're going to be doing an event with over 20 artists representing their works, talking about their books. We're going to be doing that on a platform called Hopin, which is pretty interesting. You can bounce around and meet a lot of people. So if this is your first time joining us at a Camerawork event, please check out our website, sfcamerawork.org. You can find links to the book and zine fair. Please come back and see our upcoming events. We'd love to see you again. And if you're inclined, you can become a member and you can donate. As ever, I want to thank Christina Graber, who helped us pull this together. Regine, thank you for your patience. This came out real good at the end. We had some moments came out great.
I'm so thankful to you all.
Ngozi for helping us out. And Regine, I think you had some help on the other side as well. So thanks for everybody who came together and made this possible. And I want to thank our board president, Michelle Branch. She's in the house and is also gives a lot to Camerawork to make this possible. So thanks again for all of you being here. We will send you a link to those resources and we'll let you know when this video is online. And we hope to see you soon. Have a wonderful evening.
Bye, everybody.